All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Hope you guys are doing well. And it's time to unveil yet another weekly series on this channel. It's one that I started doing a couple years ago, and it really caught on. A lot of people really appreciated it and liked it. It's basically a Seattle Seahawk rooting guide, which is to look at every game in a particular week of football and discuss who, objectively speaking, the Seahawks should be rooting for or rooting against. And in order to determine that, you need to consider a lot of different factors, including some that are pretty obscure. So it's not necessarily easy to dissect these games, which is why it's sometimes nice to have a rooting guide. If you don't, maybe you lose track, maybe you forget, maybe you don't realize there's this particular element at play. So people like these videos, so I'm going to continue to do them this year. They should go live basically every Thursday. I think that's usually a pretty reasonable expectation to have the video out before the first game of the week. Like, the rooting guide will not do you any good if the game's already over. And yeah, it'll just go for the entire 18-week duration. And sometimes our priorities will change. If the Seahawks end up having a bad season, then the things that we might want to have happened if we had a good season will be very different. So by the end of the year, we might be thinking about draft positioning, and that might be our priority. We could be competing for the number one seed, and then we're worried about other teams in the NFC. Versus we could be in the thick of a playoff race, then we're thinking about divisional opponents more. So before I get into this, though, because we do obviously have a lot of football this week, I do want to be very clear here that this series tries to be as objective as possible. So that doesn't account for subjectivity, right? Like, if you as a Seahawks fan hate the Tennessee Titans, right? Because you just hate them, and who knows why. Maybe you don't like their uniforms, maybe you don't like their stadium, but you hate the Tennessee Titans and you always want them to lose no matter what. That's different, right? Like, you just personally have a vendetta there that allows you to, makes it so that you always root against them. That's not what this is about. And obviously, that's probably going to override most things that you would consider being a rooting interest if you just have some deep-seated animosity for one particular team or player or coach or whatever. But this is just trying to be objective in terms of what can actually help the team. So keep that in mind going forward. And also keep in mind that especially this early in the season, a lot of these games don't matter that much for the Seahawks. And I'll just be trying to find little edges here and there. And probably not going to have a lot of success doing so the first week when everyone is 0-0. Nevertheless, let's get started with the game that will be played later tonight, Ravens-Chiefs. Honestly, can't really think of anything here. We don't play either team this year, so there's no strength of schedule stuff, right? We don't care about strength of schedule. Both AFC teams. I got nothing here. I can't really think of much of anything, so this really could be one of those games where you just root for whatever team you like better. Doesn't matter at all. I don't think this affects the Seahawks in any real way. I can't even think about it in terms of like compensatory draft pick stuff, right? I got nothing, so don't worry too much about that. Friday night, we got Packers-Eagles. This is the Brazil game. The Seahawks play the Packers this year, right? Seahawks play the Packers this year, so strength of schedule-wise, you'd want the Packers to win, right? Because you want a stronger strength of schedule. As for which team is a bigger threat in the NFC, I would think it would probably be the Packers. But at the same time, it's too early to really say that, right? Like, we could be completely off on these teams. The Eagles could completely fix all their issues from the end of the season last year and be a great team this year. So I don't want to speculate too much on that. I do think the Packers are a little bit more of a threat, but I'm not ready to draw any conclusions from that. So I guess we just want the Packers to win for strength of schedule. All right, and then we get to Sunday. Obviously, Broncos-Seahawks, we don't need to talk about that. So moving past that, we have Steelers-Falcons. AFC on NFC violence. It's always going to be pretty easy to just root for the AFC team, right? Because Atlanta is a team that definitely could be in contention for a playoff spot this year. So we would prefer they take some losses now. Now, we do play the Falcons this year, so strength of schedule-wise, There is an argument the other way, but I think that argument is clearly outweighed by the fact that the Falcons are likely to be in the thick of things. The one caveat to that would be, I guess if the Falcons make the playoffs, it'll probably be because they win their division. So it's unlikely we're going to be in a wild card race with them. But at the same time, we could be. And even if that's not the case, we could win the division too. And then we're competing with the Falcons for seeding. So pretty easy there, pretty straightforward. Cardinals, Bills, AFC on NFC, especially NFC West. Again, very easy. You're pretty much always going to root for the AFC here. Bills over Cardinals. And until the Cardinals are like, 1-11 or something, you're not going to even really consider rooting for that team because they remain a division rival for the time being. Titans, Bears. This is another AFC on NFC team. Although I would say the Bears are not necessarily a big threat yet. They could be a sleeper here. I like the way that team is doing some stuff. I like some stuff about that Bears team. I will say that. So I don't want to completely rule anything out. And we do play the Bears. So strength of schedule wise, okay, there's the argument the other way. Clearly outweighed by the other part of it where the Bears could be a wild card contender in a really good division. Would prefer they take the L here. Patriots, Bengals. We play the Patriots this year, so strength of schedule becomes the only real factor that I can think of here. Remember, the draft picks that we have from other teams this year are going to be very, very low. So rooting for teams to win or lose for those picks to move is a complete waste of time. I seriously doubt I'm even going to talk about it this year. So the important element here is strength of schedule. I guess we'd rather the Patriots win. So the strength of schedule for the Seahawks goes up a little bit. Could be a tiebreaker down the road. We do not play the Bengals this year. So strictly speaking, yeah, we want the Patriots to win. And I guess we want them to be feeling good about themselves going into that Week 2 game against the Seahawks. Maybe. Texans, Colts. AFC South on AFC South violence. We don't play either team this year. So have at it. Have at it on this one. Whichever one you prefer, whoever you like better, just go with it. And yeah, I figure this one doesn't really mean too much for the Seahawks. Jaguars versus Dolphins. This is going to be another one where you look at the schedule and you see we play the Dolphins. So strength of schedule wise, we'd prefer our opponents look as good as possible. So for that tiebreaker reason, yeah, I think we want the Miami Dolphins to win. We don't play Jacksonville this year, so that's about it. That's about the only thing we can look at right now. Panthers, Saints. I don't think either team is a threat this year. And yeah, we don't play either team. So I guess you just have to decide in your head which team you think is more dangerous, and that's the team you want to lose. If I had to pick one team to be more dangerous this year, I'd probably say the Saints. I don't think that Panthers team is anywhere close to a real contender yet. The Saints, at the very least, have some stuff going on that is appealing. So I would go with, we would want the Panthers to win, but that's purely based off of my sense that the Saints will be a little better than the Panthers this year. I don't think either team will be very good, but yeah, let's go with the Saints, I guess. To lose, of course. Vikings, Giants. Seahawks play both teams. So strength of schedule, not really affected. So it's just about who you view as the bigger threat. The Vikings strike me as an early contender for first overall pick because of all the injuries they've had. Starting Sam Darnold at quarterback, hard to overcome. The Giants are not necessarily that much better off. I do think they're a little better off, though. I do think it's more likely the Giants mount a surprise playoff run than the Vikings. So I guess we want the Vikings to win just because of that. But it's very thin, and realistically, root for whoever. I just have a sense the Giants will be a little better than the Vikings, but I don't think either team contends. Raiders, Chargers. Now we're into, the afternoon slate. We don't play either team this year. I can't really think of any angle here. There's nobody I want to trade for from either team or anything, so I think this one's just a whatever game. Cowboys, Browns, AFC on NFC. This is an easy one. Root for the Browns. Root for the Browns to beat the Cowboys in week 1. Start them in an 0-1 hole. And maybe weaken that competition for the wild card spot just a little bit more. Okay. Commanders, Buccaneers. Commanders, Buccaneers. Bucks made the playoffs last year. I feel like they're going to be in about the same place this year. Commanders, I don't think they're going to be able to have some magical turnaround off of this one-off season. I think you do want the Commanders to win, I guess, because I think it's more likely the Commanders end up with a losing record and a bad season. And the Buccaneers are a little bit more of a threat to maybe take a wild card spot, or maybe even sneak in and win that division, because that is a not very good division. If the Falcons falter, the Buccaneers are probably there to scoop it up. But at the same time, that's how I feel right now. If the Commanders go into Tampa Bay and win a game, I might not feel that way. I might start to question, like, wait a minute, what if this Commanders team is actually good this year? All right, Rams, Lions is the Sunday night game. That's a no-brainer. Going to be pulling for the Lions. Start the Rams in an 0-1 hole would be nice. Would really appreciate it. Playoff rematch. Should be pretty fun. And then we got another easy one Monday night. This is a no-brainer. Jets, Niners. Rooting for the Niners. Downfall. Of course, as always. You guys know how it works around here. You guys know how it goes. And I don't think there's any other angle to consider there, really. I mean, we even play the Jets this year, right? I know we played the Niners twice, but that's just not going to be more meaningful than the fact that the Niners are in our division. And you're pretty much always going to want the Niners to lose in any game this year, I think. All right, that's the rooting guide for week 1. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you disagree. See you guys later. Go Hawks. And that's what I got.